is a presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Black Hawk. We are the Lions.
Well, it's a bit series that everybody's been looking forward to, and after yesterday was completed, it's all anybody around here could talk about. The Reds and the Cardinals, the first of three. And going into play, Cincinnati, the team in first place, St. Louis, the team pursuing. A big crowd expected tonight here at Great American Ballpark, and there's a look at where everything lays. The Reds a 2-game lead over the Cardinals, Cincinnati coming off a sweep over the weekend in Chicago. St. Louis split what ended up being a 2-game series in Florida. The Cardinals were rained out against the Marlins yesterday. Thanks for joining us here at what should be an excited house at Great American Ballpark. Paul Keels and Chris Wilson, this is what it's all about when it comes to contention, Chris.
Well, it really is. For all the naysayers out there about the Reds, maybe including the Cardinals, this team is for real. I'm talking about the Reds, that is. And I think the Cardinals are beginning to believe that, because once you get into the month of August and you find out that you're still in the race, let's take a look at what they've done since the All-Star break, just to kind of put a little emphasis on it. Since the break, the Cardinals came out hot. They won the first 7 games, but they're under 500 since that time. The Reds lost 4 games going into the All-Star break, as you remember, when they were swept in Philadelphia. But they've won 9 of their last 11, and this, I think, is a much better team right now than when the Reds and the Cardinals teed it up last, and they saw each other. Now, you take in the addition of Jim Edmonds, I think it makes the team even better than ever.
It brings in a guy that's got experience in these kind of situations.
Certainly does, and Jim Edmonds has plenty of experience. I mean, the Reds got him for Chris Dickerson. Some people may not like that deal, but what it shows me is that the Reds are all in this year. They are going for all of it, and you bring in a veteran like Jim Edmonds, who is healthy, by the way. He sat all of last year. He's playing really good baseball right now, and he's in center field tonight. Edmonds gives you defense, he gives you good offense, and he gives you some veteran leadership down the stretch, too, and I don't think you could ever overemphasize that.
And he certainly has been a guy that has killed the Reds over the years. Don't have to worry about that anymore this year. Tonight, it's Mike Leake and Chris Carpenter battling one another on the mound. Game 1 of the Reds and the Cardinals. Chris, tonight a Sage veteran and an impressive youngster.
Well, there's no question about that. This veteran is a former Cy Young Award winner. The Cardinals got him from the Toronto Blue Jays. A real good move back in the day by Walt Jocketty to get him. And over this season, he is 12-3. He's 10-3 against the Reds in his career. In fact, he's not lost to a Reds team in the last 4 years, going back to 2006. So you hope that Carpenter maybe have an off day tonight. The Reds can take advantage of it. One thing for certain, though, you're going to have to play a very tight ball game when you face a guy like Chris Carpenter. This guy is the real deal, dominant pitcher, great curveball, and a big game pitcher as well.
And Mike Leake coming into a game for the first time this year, a back-to-back losing decision.
Well, he had a very bad outing his last time, somewhat explained by the fact that the Reds skipped him in the rotation, and it was a full 10 days between starts for Leake. He wasn't sharp. If he is sharp, he can give the Cardinals a tough game of it. He pitched very well against the Cardinals at home here in Cincinnati early in the year, picked up a win against them back on May the 15th. I expect the same kind of thing for Mike Leake, but for a young rookie like Leake, you've got to get off to a good start. That means getting through the order the first time. Don't give up a big number in the first inning. And please do not challenge Albert Pujols. This guy is on fire.
Yes, he is. Tony La Russa's Cardinals and Dusty Baker's Reds meeting tonight here at Great American Ballpark. State Farm, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. By Ford, F-Series trucks, the best-selling trucks 33 straight years. By Just for Men, for mustache and beard, keep your edge. And by Skyline Chili, whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Stop at Skyline today, as a matter of fact. And you get a good look at the Ohio River and a packed house expected tonight here at Great American Ballpark. The Reds and the Cardinals. And Mike Leake, the youngster from Arizona State, will take his turn on the mound. And this is the St. Louis batting order that he will face this evening.
Well, former Reds Felipe Lopez will lead it off. John Jay, now the everyday right fielder after the trade of Ryan Ludwig. Albert Pujols has heated up. Holiday, Rasmus Molina.
And Felipe Lopez will lash this one into left, and Lance Nix with a running catch to start the night off in good fashion. Very nice play by Lance Nixon left.
Now, one thing this tells you right away, that the Cardinals know that Mike Leake is going to throw strikes, and they're going to come out swinging the bat. And they realize that they're going to have to make contact with this young man. If he's on his game, will not walk a lot. Good effort by Lance Nix, a very athletic left fielder, getting the nod tonight over the right-handed hitting Johnny Gomes. And he comes up with a big play right out of the chute.
John Jay looks at a strike, the Cardinal right fielder. And that is pretty much his position since the trade of Ryan Ludwig to San Diego. So look at what Mike Leake has done here in 2010. The innings, the most by a rookie in the National League. Brandon Phillips back in the lineup after a day off yesterday. 2 down quickly. And here's a look at the Ford defense. You've seen a couple of solid plays from both Lance Nix in left and Brandon Phillips in second base. Jim Edmonds, newly acquired, starts in center field. And Paul Giannis at shortstop. How about the job Paul Giannis has done as of late, especially at the plate, Paul?
He's done a great job. Ramon Hernandez will be behind the plate tonight catching Mike Leake. So the Reds just about back to their entire starting lineup, and you may see this particular lineup a fair amount from here on. If you're facing a tough right-handed pitcher, Dusty Baker tonight opting to go with a left-handed hitting Jim Edmonds, newly acquired just today, in center field, and Lance Nix in left. So you got a lot of lefties in this lineup.
Well, anybody watching pretty much knows about this righty, Albert Pujols. The amazing thing with what he has done as of late, and he's been on a home run tear. Pops this one into right center, but in position, Jay Bruce. He's got 11 straight games without being walked. And after a half inning, no score. Dusty Baker's Reds will take their turn with no score here at Great American Ballpark. Here's Dusty Baker's batting order tonight.
Yeah, he's going with a lot of left-handers tonight. Brandon Phillips leads off. Lance Nix is second. Joey Votto having an MVP-type year. 400, and you see the numbers that he has hit off of Carpenter. Scott Rowland, Jim Edmonds, a left-handed hitter. Jay Bruce, a lefty. And then Hernandez, Giannis, and Mike Leake. Leake, by the way, batting .357 as the Reds come into this ball game.
You know, the Reds pitchers have been in a little of a drought at the plate, though. We'll talk about that when Leake comes up. This guy's not been in any kind of a drought against the Reds.
Well, he never really has much of a drought anyway. He's coming off a very good outing. His last 5 outings, he's 3-0, an earned run average of 1.4. Every year, it seems like Chris Carpenter is one of the favorites to be a Cy Young Award winner, and he usually does not disappoint. Making his 25th start, he's won 12 games overall. He's a good ground ball pitcher, has a fastball that is anywhere from 92 to 95 miles an hour. He's not afraid to pitch inside. He's always one of these guys that is around the league leaders and hit batters. So he likes to intimidate, too. And he drops that big curveball on you. Look out. That is his go-to pitch.
And he has won 8 consecutive decisions against the Reds, dating all the way back to 2006. Chris Carpenter, 2005 Cy Young Award winner. And Brandon Phillips back in the lineup after a day off yesterday. How about the job Miguel Cairo did filling in at second base?
You know, it really doesn't matter where you put Miguel Cairo in. I mean, whether he's filling in for Votto, Rowland, at second base for Brandon Phillips, the guy seems to be able to rise to the occasion. He is the Reds super sub so far this year, Miguel Cairo. But no need for Cairo today. Brandon Phillips feels fine after taking a day off yesterday, and we'll see if he's ready to try to solve some of the offerings of Chris Carpenter. Not an easy thing to do. He has not done much against Carpenter career-wise.
As have a lot of the Reds not done a lot. Jim Edmonds is one who has had some success against Chris Carpenter. All the way back to 2006, the last time the Reds were able to crease Carpenter. Brandon Phillips, 287 average, and he is third best in the National League in base hits. He certainly has been the ultimate as far as getting on base and creating havoc in that regard. Count is even at 1-1. He will be followed by Lance Nix hitting in the number 2 spot. There's what Brandon Phillips has done against Carpenter.
Now, those are very similar numbers you're going to see up and down the Reds' order. I mean, you don't go overall in your career 10-3 against a ball club and have 2 or 3 guys in there that really hammer you. In fact, there's nobody, with the exception of Jim Edmonds, that has really solved Carpenter to any kind of consistency. But most of the numbers, of course, Edmonds had against Carpenter were back in the American League a long time ago.
Ground ball right at Felipe Lopez at third base. And Phillips is retired for the first out of the inning. Here's a look at the forward defense for Tony La Russa's Cardinals. You saw Lopez at third. David Freese is out due to a season-ending injury, and the most recent of which was suffered in his rehab. John Jay, whom you talked about, Chris, now taking over in right field on a pretty regular basis. And then there's that guy Pujols over at first. So 1 out. Lance Nix, for the 4th time in his career, starting a game batting in the number 2 hole. Did it last year in September against Florida. And a base hit. So early on, the 2 spot agreeing with Lance Nix.
Well, Lance Nix always a guy that loves the fastball. If he's going to get a piece of cheese on the first pitch, believe me, he's coming up there hacking. And he takes it right back up the middle. He gets his 3rd hit in 13 attempts facing Carpenter.
So 1 on and 1 out, and that brings Joey Votto to the plate. Very successful day yesterday for Joey Votto in Chicago. Number 2 in batting average and home runs, and he is all over the National League leaderboard in a lot of categories. John Jay will position for this fly ball in right field. And 2 are gone.
Well, both of the first basemen in this ball game, Albert Pujols and Joey Votto, got their pitch here in the first inning, and both of them barely missed it. And both ended up fly balls to right field.
So Scott Rowland will be the 2-out batter. Rowland with a day off yesterday, and certainly Dusty Baker has been keeping a careful eye on veterans such as Rowland and Cabrera when he was on the active list as far as spacing their time out. We should mention, too, all of the talk about the Jim Edmonds trade. Of course, Chris Dickerson going to Milwaukee in the deal. The Reds had to make a roster move, and it kind of caught some people by surprise at first. Travis Wood was optioned down to Louisville. However,
well, if you look inside that transaction, you know, first thing you keep in mind, there are so many more things that go into making a decision about a transaction than just the baseball part of it. A lot of it is procedural, administrative rules. You try to find your way around loopholes and plan ahead. And I think what they were going to do with Travis Wood is skip his next start anyway. And so this way they can just back him up, get him back for his scheduled start after that. And in the meantime, they free up a roster spot and bring on an everyday player instead of an extra pitcher who'll be sitting on the bench.
Rolling in an 0-2 hole. And this one at Lopez goes to second for the force, and the Reds are retired, leaving one stranded after 1 full. No score. help? Serious lawyers or serious injuries? Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO. And there's a look at what the chase has been like by these two top teams of the National League Central since the All-Star break.
Well, they shared a lot of days in first place, as you see. The Cardinals at 37, the Reds at 59 days. The largest lead the Reds have had right now, they're at 2. And they've swapped spots at the top of the Central Division 17 times. Of course, the Reds hope that does not happen again. And, of course, you win a ball game, especially the first ball game in this series, and you guarantee it won't happen, at least in this series.
Yeah, that goes all the way back to May 15th. Forgive me, not since the All-Star break, but it really pretty early on in the season has been just a two-team race here in the National League Central. Mike Leake starts off against Matt Holliday, top of the second here at Great American. No score in the baseball game. Holliday to be followed by Colby Rasmus and Yadier Molina. Cardinals win in order in the top of the first. And Holliday comes in. 298, 21 homers. Early in the year, people were taking a lot of liberty in walking Pujols to get to Holliday, who wasn't hurting folks appropriately. But that's changed. Up the middle, base hit, first knock of the night for the Cardinals. So that sets the table for Colby Rasmus, the center fielder. St. Louis coming in after a series in Florida in which they only got 2 in. They were rained out yesterday. No date has been set to make up that game. There's a look at Colby Rasmus' numbers for 2010. Holliday on at first, and Mike Leake. To the outside. Leake, 12 quality starts on the year.
And he's been stuck on that number for a while now, unfortunately. Mike Leake was the best starting pitcher the Reds had coming out of the chute. Really, for the first 2 months of the year, by far the most consistent.
He started the year 7-1, the best start by a Reds rookie pitcher since Wayne Simpson.
Hard filling Wayne Simpson.
Back in 1970. Simpson's the rookie, made the All-Star team that year at Riverfront Stadium. 1-1 the count to Colby Rasmus, with Holliday leading at first. Could be 2. Phillips, Yanish, Votto, got it. And it looked like Phillips struggled to get it out of his glove at first.
Well, when you're a ground ball pitcher like Mike Leake, you're one pitch away from getting out of a tough jam with one of these. Even though Brandon Phillips has a tough time getting it out of his glove, still plenty of time to get Colby Rasmus on a tailor-made 4.63 twin killing.
So that clears the bases. Well, we talked about how Yanish has atoned very well at the plate, but what he does in the field with a glove, well, that's been a constant for Paul Yanish. Yadier Molina, the 2-out batter, and this is a guy that's been on a tear since the All-Star break, hitting over 340. Once again, the National League starting catcher in the All-Star game, Yadier Molina. This is his 15th consecutive start behind the plate. Now, he's not finished all 15 of those, 14 of the previous games. They have used Jason LaRue late in some games. But Tony La Russa is really riding him defensively. 2-1. And another base hit, the second of the inning for the Cardinals. So that'll bring Skip Schumacher to the plate. Follow the Reds on your iPhone, iPod Touch, BlackBerry, and Android phone with MLB.com's At Bat 2010, featuring play-by-play, video highlights, and live audio broadcasts. Don't miss a moment in 2010. Visit Reds.com on your iPhone or iPod Touch to purchase. Molina with the second hit of the inning out at first base, and Skip Schumacher at the plate. Paul Yanish with a play that'll end the inning. No score after an inning and a half, and Jim Edmonds will get his first look at the plate in a Reds uniform. In left or center field during tonight's game, John Vogel from Cincinnati will win this beautiful new Tundra on display at Great American Ballpark. Register for your chance to win at an upcoming game by visiting your Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky dealers. And Jim Edmonds with a warm welcome here at Great American Ballpark as the Reds will come to hit in the bottom of the second inning in a scoreless ball game. Edmonds acquired today from Milwaukee, a 17-year veteran with his 52nd start of the year. He talked earlier this afternoon about how he's always loved hitting in this ballpark. And he's been a Reds killer.
Of course, when he's hit in this ballpark, he's had the advantage of hitting Reds pitching.
Yes.
And for the last decade or so, that has been more good hitting than good pitching.
And he's made some stellar plays around the outfield wall there.
And now, of course, he's going to have to deal with Cardinal pitching, at least in this series.
A four-time All-Star, 8 Gold Glove Awards, as well as winner of a Louisville Silver Slugger. 1-1 the count. Jim Edmonds against his former teammate Chris Carpenter. And Edmonds to center. Rasmus, one down. And Edmonds is a guy that has hit Carpenter fairly well, but as you said, Chris, a lot of that when he was with the Angels and Carpenter was with the Blue Jays. Jay Bruce. And Jay Bruce really got the party started yesterday with that key first inning base hit.
He did, and he really needed that base hit, too. He had been really struggling throughout the month of July, had struggled in early August, especially from the power numbers, but got a couple of changeups his first times up and hit base hits.
And this one could be a long base hit. Right field, John Jay at the wall, and he has got it just short of the wall. So 2 are gone.
I think a lot of people in this ballpark thought he hit this ball a little better than he did, but you see where the point of contact is on the bat, way out towards the end, so he missed his sweet spot by just a little bit. It's just kind of a get-ahead fastball right there for Chris Carpenter. That's a pitch, though, when Jay Bruce is going right. He doesn't hit it to right field. He hits that baby to left center field, and it probably goes a lot farther.
So a 2 down, Ramon Hernandez will step in. Just missed Jay Bruce after a very good day yesterday at Wrigley. Here's a look at Hernandez's numbers, almost at 290 with a batting average. And we've all talked about the production the Reds have gotten out of their catching duo during the course of the year, and Hernandez adding to that, having hit safely in 6 of his last 7 baseball games. 2 outs, bottom of the second. And that'll be a base hit for Ramon Hernandez. So add another game to that count. 7 of his last 8.
Now, ask me if I'd rather have Johnny Bench. Yes, I would. But the fact that the Reds have a 2-headed catching combination out there really is nice because it keeps these guys nice and fresh. Plus, it also gives pitchers a certain catcher that they know they're going to work with. So Hernandez, he gets a day off yesterday. He's able to come back today, swing the bat a little bit, and just nice to know that when you call on a catcher to start a ball game, that this guy's going to be fresh.
Speaking of somebody who's been called on and delivered, Paul Janich, who has hit safely in all 5 of the games he has started since Orlando Cabrera went on the disabled list.
And Paul Janich wants to show a lot of people that he can be an everyday starting player in the major leagues.
Right at Felipe Lopez, and that'll bring the inning to an end. After 2, no score. Reds and Cardinals here in Cincinnati.
Fox Sports Ohio. Jim Day with you. Jim Edmonds, now a Cincinnati Red. Now, obviously, he's been on that Reds killer list. That can also be translated to the most disliked list. Now, in our Geico quote of the night, I asked Jim Edmonds, you know that it's going to take some fans a little bit to get used to you in a Reds uniform, correct?
Well, as long as it's not as bad as it was in Chicago, I'll be all right. The media killed me in Chicago for about 3 weeks until I hit my first home run. But, that's just, that's what it is. I've been in the, in the Central for so long, and when you play the same team over and over and over, you're bound to have some good games. I love hitting in this park. It's a great place to play. They get great fans. It's a good city, so I'm looking forward to it.
And it makes it easier with some familiar faces. Of course, Scott Rowland, a former Cardinal. He saw Russ Springer today and Miguel Cairo. So these guys are all reunited, all winning players, fellas.
So he also talked a lot about just the mutual respect that he had for some of the other guys that were over here. But Jim Edmonds certainly has been one of those guys that was a Reds killer. And, when you think about it over the course of baseball, and even more so now with the movement that happens, and players not staying with one team, but the Reds have had a little bit of a history. You might have to go back for a while of getting people that have hurt them with previous teams. Chris Carpenter, Lavianish for the first time. Kevin Mitchell is one that comes to mind. Kevin Mitchell is not a very highly liked player when he come in here with the Giants, but when he was in a Reds uniform, Heavy Kevy was a fan favorite.
You better believe it.
You think back to back in the early and mid-'70s when the Big Red Machine team used to have trouble with San Diego. They traded and got Fred Norman. They traded and got Clay Kirby. Brendan Ryan, the shortstop, will be the one-out hitter for St. Louis. Of course, this Cardinal team has gone through somewhat of a makeover. The injury to David Freese at third, trading Ryan Ludwig. Felipe Lopez, it appears, has kind of taken over at the third base spot. And Tony La Russa trying to keep his team in contention here. Top of the third, scoreless game. Ryan shoots this one the other way. But Brandon Phillips has it for the second out. Back to the top of the order, and Felipe Lopez.
Well, a lot of early fastballs, a lot of early swinging by both teams right now. They seem to be acknowledging that these pitchers are going to be throwing strikes, and they'd rather not hit their breaking ball. So what the Reds have done against Carpenter is come out swinging early on, trying to hit the fastball, and the same goes for the Cardinals. We'll see if now, second time through the order, Leake begins to change it up a little bit or stay with what is working.
Lopez hit a fly ball that Lance Nix made a charging catch on out at left field. Mike Leake.
I'll tell you the first thing, when I look at this field defensively and I look at Jim Edmonds in center field and how shallow he plays, that is a major difference than what anybody's been playing. I mean, Drew Stubbs, Jay Bruce, Ken Griffey Jr., well, you go back in time and you start naming them, and Edmonds is playing almost a challenging type of center field, saying, here I am, try to hit it over my head. Now, in this ballpark, most balls that are hit over the outfielders' heads are home runs.
Lopez will ground this to Brandon Phillips, and that'll bring the inning to an end. Still scoreless here at Great American. Fame baseball writer Hal McCoy. Plus, the preseason college football rankings are out, and UC is not in the top 25. Could the snub help motivate the Bearcats? Check out the article on FoxSportsOhio.com, presented by 1-800-SAFE-AUTO and SafeAuto.com. There's Hal. It's always great to come to the ballpark and talk to Hal McCoy. Reds and Cardinals scoreless as we move to the bottom of the third inning, and some acknowledgement for Joey Votto prior to the start of the game for being voted into the All-Star game. The fan vote to get that last spot in the National League. So some nice recognition for Joey Votto in his All-Star appearance out in Anaheim. Mike Leake to lead off the bottom of the third for the Reds. And we mentioned that as well as the Reds and Mike Leake in particular have been hitting over the course of the whole year, Reds pitchers are hitless in their last 33 at-bats.
All right, now how good is Mike Leake a hitter? These are the first two curveballs that Chris Carpenter has led a hitter off with throughout the entire lineup. Everybody else he's throwing first pitch fastball to.
Doesn't want to give in. 0-2.
I guess they determined through studying tape that Leake can hit a fastball.
Leake, by the way, did have the last hit for a Reds pitcher. I know that's no shock to anybody. Came on July 20th against Washington. 15 base hits for him. He was up in Milwaukee. He was used as a pinch hitter late in one of the games up there. Checks and does so in time.
That's what Mike Leake does so well, is when he gets two strikes on him, even if he makes an out, he makes the other guy work a little bit. He fouls off a lot of pitches. He shortens up. He's just trying to make contact right now.
Leake, the leading hitting pitcher in the National League at 357. For a while, he had been behind Dan Herron, formerly of Arizona, now traded to the American League. Able to rack up some multi-hit games, 4 multi-hit games. No score, bottom of the third. Goes Mike Leake for the first strikeout of the game. Time to take a look at the Honda standings for the National League Central Division, and what this is a look at how these teams have done against all others in the National League Central. Now add to those numbers something you don't see, the fact that the Reds have the best road record in the National League Central. And it all translates into a 2-game lead. There's this 3-game series here. The next to last series between the Reds and the Cardinals. They will meet in St. Louis on Labor Day weekend. Brandon Phillips grounded out to third base in his first at-bat. We've been referring to Jim Edmonds now as a former Reds killer. Certainly Chris Carpenter, as you said, Chris, has to fall in that category as well. Broken bat grounder. Here's Phillips.
Well, Chris Carpenter is that way among a lot of people out there. I mean, you don't fashion a kind of record every year that Carpenter does by beating up only on the Cincinnati Reds. But the one thing the Cardinals have been able to do this year with Carpenter and Garcia and Adam Wainwright, and the Reds will see all 3 of those pitchers in this series, is that they've been able to dominate the Central Division. And those 3 pitchers really account for the vast majority of the quality starts that the Cardinals have had. There's a major drop-off when they go to starter number 4. That's one reason why they went out and dealt with the Cleveland Indians to obtain Jake Westbrook. They wanted to bolster the back end of their starting rotation.
They've had some injury problem in that regard with Kyle Loesch and Brad Penny, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, those guys have really never gotten off the schneid there. As Kyle Loesch has been very disappointing in the long-term contract that he signed. Brad Penny hurt himself and hurt himself again trying to come back, and they wanted to make sure they had somebody in that number 4 spot that they could depend on.
0-2 the count to Lance Nix, who has one of the 2 Reds base hits on the night.
Now, he got fastballs his first time up. Nix did, and he's not getting any this time.
Nix with 12 hits in his last 22 at-bats, and I know you and Tom talked a lot over the weekend about how it's hard for a guy that doesn't get to play on a regular basis to stay sharp, but Lance somehow has.
It is, but, you know, a lot of it is mental.
And that As a drop third strike, but the put-out will be recorded, and the inning comes to an end. After 3, here at Great American, the Reds and the Cardinals are scoreless. Is brought to you by your Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Toyota dealers, where you can register to win the Tundra at Great American Ballpark. By JTM, food, family, fun, JTM. By Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit us at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. And by GMC, we are professional grade. Reds and Cardinals scoreless after 3. Of course, Jim Edmonds today acquired by the Reds in a trade engineered by General Manager Walt Jocketty.
Well, we felt that Edmonds would add a veteran experience, playoff experience, guy who's had a pretty good year with Milwaukee, and actually a guy that thought about signing over the winter, and we didn't, and kind of regretted the fact we didn't. But anyhow, I think he's going to help us in a lot of different ways.
Obviously, a lot of familiarity there as John Jay delivers with a base hit into right field, and he'll end up at second base. John Jay with a third base hit of the night for the Cardinals.
A lot of people thought there would be immense pressure on this young man. John Jay, a good-looking left-handed hitter from Miami, Florida. He is the inheritor of right field after Ryan Ludwig, a very good middle-of-the-order right-handed hitter, was dealt to the Padres. John Jay was a guy left behind, and he picks up his 14th double of the year.
And he led the National League in hitting in the month of July at .431. So now, Albert the Great stands in at the plate. And he has been on fire.
Well, for Albert Pujols in the first at-bat and for Joey Votto in the first at-bat, both of these guys getting their pitch, which was fastballs right there. Pujols flies out opposite field to right field. Joey Votto pulled his pitch to right field. Both of them harmless fly balls. Definitely a game of inches. And 2 very good first pitches right there by Mike Leake to Albert Pujols. Now, Pujols is hot, and this is the one guy who's a game changer. When he's seeing the ball well, he might as well not pitch to him. And he's seeing the ball well right now, but Leake's made him look bad on the first 2 offerings. First a fastball, then a changeup.
Yeah, excuse me, Chris. He has homered in 5 of his last 7. 0 for 1 tonight. But again, we go back to what we mentioned briefly in his first at-bat. With how Albert Pujols has now gone 11 straight games without being walked. And usually you see pitchers pitch around him. Should we read into that Holiday has made him pay? 2-2 now.
Well, you know, this is the year of the pitcher. I think that you've seen offense take a step back a little bit. And Albert Pujols' offensive numbers for him have taken a step back, although they're very good compared to everybody else.
John Jay out at second after a leadoff double. And Pujols for the base hit. Lance Nix will come up and keep John Jay from going any further than third.
Well, the more pitches that Albert Pujols sees, the better hitter he will be. And he finally got settled in this at bat after looking bad the first two. He rips that inside fastball in between third base and short. And Leake, for the most part, trying to get it in on Pujols.
Two of the best in the league down there at that position, or anywhere for that matter. Fox Exmo just shows you how he's able to get around quickly on that stuff that comes inside. Matt Holliday in the Cardinals' last game, which was Saturday night, a loss in Florida, hit his 33rd multi-hit game. No score here in the top of the fourth, with the Cardinals with a threat going. John Jay with a double is now down at third. Albert Pujols with a single is at first. And that'll bring in a run to give St. Louis the lead.
Well, that's good hitting right there by Matt Holliday. 2 times in a row, Holliday just takes whatever Mike Leake gives him. He sees a hole open on the right side. You think a guy as big as Holliday, I mean, look at the size of this guy out there. Do you think he'd be hitting for the fences? No, he's too smart for that. He knows the League is going to try to maybe come inside on him right here, maybe roll over on a ball, get a ground ball double play, give up a run that way. But he uses the right side of the field where all the room is in the infield, and he punches it through for a base hit.
And his 68th RBI of the season. So the Cardinals with the first lead of the game, 1-0. Colby Rasmus, who grounded into a double play. And he'll keep it going with a base hit up the middle. Pujols is going to be waved home. Edmonds with a throw to the plate. And it is Pujols 2-0 Cardinals. Four straight base hits for St. Louis.
And they're not exactly knocking the cover off the ball. Pujols hit his very sharply. The last couple of them, Matt Holliday's not hit well, but at a great spot. And this one, boy, does it get through the infield in a hurry. I guess Great American Ballpark, like everybody else's yard, it looks like it getting a little bit hard and fast out there. That ball got through the infield lickety-split.
And Albert Pujols able to get in early on the throw that took Hernandez just a little to the first base side of the dish. So 2-0.
You know, you wouldn't even think that there would be a play on that normally, because that was a ground ball, not a one-hopper to the center fielder, but because Jim Edmonds plays so shallow, and he knows that he's kind of charging on this ball, thinking Leake's going downstairs or something. If they get a base hit, it's going to be a ground ball. He did this with the St. Louis Cardinals for a long time, and gets to it, and very fluid-like, gets rid of that ball and just a little bit offline.
Still nobody out here in the top of the fourth. Yadier Molina in the hole. Giannis, and no play. The base is loaded.
Well, this is the same kind of thing that plagued Mike Leake in his last start. It seemed like every time the Pirates hit the ball, there was nobody there. So Holliday finds a hole on the right side. Rasmus goes up the middle, and Yadier Molina goes with a weak ground ball between third and short that'll go for a base hit. I mean, any one of these balls, if they're hit 2 or 3 feet either way, they're ground ball double plays, and Leake is sitting on the bench.
Speaking of that game last Tuesday in Pittsburgh, it was announced today that there's been a scoring change in that ball hit by Lasting's Millage. It has been ruled an error to Scott Rowland rather than a double. We'll maybe get a chance to talk about that a little later on. Schumacher sends this one deep, and it will clear everybody. Grand slam home run, Skip Schumacher. Wow. 6-0 Cardinals. His 4th homer of the season. Still nobody else.
Man, oh man, are you kidding me? Skip Schumacher going oppage with the bases loaded.
The first career grand slam for Skip Schumacher. And the next batter hit a grand slam here last year against the Reds, and that is pitcher Chris Carpenter, who connected on one off of Kip Wells in 2009.
He's probably so happy right now to have 6 runs, he doesn't care what he does at the plate.
Isn't that the truth?
If you're sitting at home asking yourself what just happened, and if you figured out what happened, go ahead and email me. Because I can't figure it out either.
6 consecutive base hits to start the 4th inning.
A hard hit ball, 4 bloops, and a blast.
And there's the guy that had the blast, Skip Schumacher. Count 2-2 to Chris Carpenter, who is batting in the 8th spot. Generally, you will see Tony La Russa do that at times, as does John Russell at Pittsburgh. And the Reds have gotten Carlos Fisher up in the bullpen to start to get some work in. And Carpenter down on strikes for the first out of the inning. First strikeout of the night for Mike Leake. Time to take a look at our trivia question this evening, as we usually do during each and every baseball game, and it is presented by AT&T. Who is the last non-Triple Crown winner to lead the National League in average and home runs in the same season? Again, the last non-Triple Crown winner to lead in those 2 categories. The Triple Crown involves the 3 key categories. We'll have the answer coming in the next half inning. Joey Votto's a guy that could maybe push himself into that position. Brendan Ryan, the number 9 hitter, is up with 1 out. Ryan with a fly ball to Brandon Phillips in the 3rd inning. 6-0 St. Louis. Skip Schumacher with a grand slam. As you would imagine, it is hush the crowd here at Great American Bullpen.
Well, certainly taking a lot of the energy out of this crowd. When you look up and all of a sudden a 6 spot, it happened in about 6 minutes.
2-1 pitch, Mike Leake, and he gets Brendan Ryan to swing wildly for strike 2. The inning started with a double by John Jay. And then a bunch of singles, and then the big fly. Swing and a miss. That's 2 outs. He's in a hurry to get out of there.
He feels like he's been out there a lot longer than 2 outs.
Some back-to-back strikeouts for Mike Leake.
And that may give you a little indication where his head is right now. You know that he was out there thinking, all right, I'm going to show these guys that I can go pitch to pitch and inning by inning with Chris Carpenter and the Cardinals. And then you're really deflated after you give up a 6 spot, especially a grand slam home run, regardless of what kind of hits led up to it. I mean, the disappointment must be overwhelming for him.
Felipe Lopez, who is 0 for 2. Two and 0 the count. And Lopez breaks a base hit into right field. So the guy who started the inning with a double, John Jay, will get his second at-bat of the 4th inning.
Now, they've had some activity in the bullpen. I've not seen yet who's been warming up. But Dusty Baker's on his way to the mound, and usually when Dusty comes out, even if it's the first visit of the inning, you're getting a new pitcher.
Carlos Fisher was warming, so we'll assume he will be whom will come in. 2 are down, but the Reds find themselves in a 6-run hole, trailing the Cardinals 6-0 at the top of the 4th here at Great American. Our Skyline call to the bullpen will bring Carlos Fisher in. August 15th as the Reds take on the Florida Marlins. It's our next Meyer Family Day. When one family member purchases a full-price ticket, the entire family gets non-premium tickets at a half price. For details, call 513-381-REDS or go to reds.com/family. Well, St. Louis has cashed in big time here in the top of the fourth. They have scored 6 runs, and there are only 2 out as Mike Leake's night is done, and Carlos Fisher has been summoned from the bullpen.
Well, he's a long man out of the bullpen. In fact, when the Reds brought up Russ Springer out of the minor leagues to be on the active roster in Pittsburgh, they sent out Carlos Fisher right before that road trip. And one of the worries that Dusty Baker had was that he didn't have a guy on his staff now that could give you extended innings. And a night like this is exactly when you need a long man. Try to keep the team in the game, see if you can battle back, but got to give him some innings here.
Yes, and John Jay, who started this 4th inning with a double, will be the 2-out batter. Felipe Lopez singled. He's over at first base. Skip Schumacher has been the guy that's done the big damage. A grand slam home run with nobody out here in the 4th. Carlos Fisher has gotten very familiar with I-71 from Cincinnati to Louisville. He's in his 3rd stint with a major league club. John Jay 1 for 2. Fisher feeds him a strike. He was brought up to take the spot of Russ Springer on Saturday. Count 1-1 with 2 outs. On the move, Lopez, and the ball will get by Ramon Hernandez, and Lopez will take a turn, and he'll move on down to 3rd. Hernandez can't get him there. So Felipe Lopez is steal, and we would guess at that point. Well, we won't guess. We'll wait and see how they score.
Well, you talk about aggressive base running. This is on the edge of being embarrassment right here. The stolen base goes on, or the stolen base first, because he's running on the pitch. But he just never really slows down much. He doesn't slide into second base, realizing there's no throw coming, and he takes advantage of his speed and gets all the way to 3rd.
Stolen base, the 4th of the year for Felipe Lopez, and a pass ball charge.
It should be. The ball was not in the dirt. It just looked like Ramon Hernandez was in a hurry to glove the ball. Actually tried to, snatch that glove back up into his throwing hand before he actually had the ball in it.
Count now 3-1 to John Jay, the 10th batter of the 4th inning for St. Louis.
Well, John Jay has a kind of an unusual, maybe an old-fashioned type of a setup. You watch him hold his hands down around his waist, and he takes a big hitch. But when he finally puts his front foot down, his hands are back up where around his back shoulder, which is where most good hitters start their swing in the beginning.
He's on with a walk. The first walk given up by either Fisher or the departed Mike Leake. And the inning will continue for Albert Pujols. There's Mike Leake. Certainly not what he or anyone expected. 6 consecutive base hits by the Cardinals to start the 4th. Pujols 1 for 2 tonight. Jay at first, Lopez at 3rd, and Carlos Fisher to try to put the fire out, but missing the strike zone.
Well, he's trying to throw his curveball in there, and he's not coming anywhere close right now. That baby's spinning up there like a pepperoni pizza. He needs to finish that ball, get out over his front leg a little bit, and bend his back at the end of his delivery. By the way, Pujols does eat pizza.
And pitchers. He almost went after that one.
2 high curveballs that miss way out of the zone, and then he nearly bounces one right here.
Well, he is 6 long ones shy of becoming the 47th player in baseball history to get to 400 home runs. looks at a strike.
I mean, Carlos Fisher's got a decent fastball at 94. I'm not so sure why he's afraid to throw it.
The name on the back of the jersey.
You know what? Sometimes that has an effect.
3-1 the count. Now 3-2. Jose Akendo coaching down in the third base box for the Cardinals. Got out of the way of that. Dave McKay is their first base coach. Each of them have been in those roles for many years with Tony La Russa. So he's got Dave Duncan, his longtime pitching coach and former teammate with Oakland, and Mark McGuire in his first year as the hitting coach with the Cardinals. There's what Albert Pujols has done in these situations with a count full. Base hit. Another run will come in. 7 of them. RBI number 83.
Well, a fly ball to right and 2 rockets. And Albert is seeing the ball big right now.
So the Cardinals do a lot of damage with nobody out. They continue to chip away with 2 out, and Matt Holliday, who drove in the first run of the game, gets his second at bat in the top of the 4th.
And as I mentioned early on, the more pitches that Albert sees off a certain pitcher, the more he gets zoned in, especially when that 6th pitch from Carlos Fisher pretty much dissects the strike zone.
Carlos Fisher preparing for pitch number 40 of this inning. Giannis off his chest, but he'll throw him out. Cardinals do big damage, though. 7 runs here in the frame. Skip Schumacher, a grand slam, the big blow. 7-0, St. Louis. Gives the Cardinals a 7-0 lead over the Reds. We move to the bottom of the 4th. Our AT&T trivia question: who was the last non-Triple Crown winner to lead the National League in average in home run in the same season? The answer: Johnny Mize, way back in the late 1930s with the St. Louis Cardinals. Of course, the last Triple Crown winner was Carl Yastrzemski back in the 60s with the Red Sox. Joey Votto, the leadoff batter for the Reds, working against Chris Carpenter. The Reds trying to climb out of a 7-run hole. Mike Leake, by the way, 3 2/3 innings, 9 hits, 7 runs, 6 of which were earned, 2 strikeouts, no walks. The 1 walk was charged to Carlos Fisher. Joey Votto with a fly ball to right field in his only plate appearance. And there's Mike Leake.
Looking a little shell-shocked.
Yes.
Well, if you pitch long enough, you've been there.
You mentioned he started like a house afire.
Some guys who don't pitch very long have been there.
That's why they don't pitch very long. There's the line we referred to.
Now, if your Reds, this is what you do. You're down by 7 runs. I mean, you're not going to get them all back in one inning, and you may not get them back tonight. You don't know. But you've got to make this guy work a little bit. And Votto's doing the right thing. He ran the count 3-0 before he decides to take the bat off his shoulder. And at the very least, maybe you can get into the Cardinal bullpen and work them a little bit and get them work that they didn't want to have tonight. And then at the very most, maybe you're able to have a couple of big innings, some big breaks, and you're right back in the ballgame.
So Tony Lewis, the CC's starting pitcher, gave up his first base on balls of the night. And former Cardinal Scott Rowland is the next hitter. 7-0 St. Louis. Everybody has talked ever since Scott Rowland came here from Toronto about the effect he has had on this team as far as wins and losses by his presence. Count is 0-1.
Of course, his presence is more than just showing up. It's showing up and picking at a third base like a Gold Glover, and it's also hitting 300 with 18 bombs. So he has had an impact, no doubt.
And he starts the Reds 77-46. And I mentioned it just a little while ago. Count now 1-2. Rowland on that scoring change from last week at Pittsburgh, given an error on a ball hit by Lasting's Millage. And I remember reading the quote even after the game. Scott Rowland was a little flummoxed as to how it was not originally scored an error.
I thought it should have been. That probably will save. I was in Mike Leake's game,
yes,
if I remember right.
Yes.
And that'll save Leake a couple of earned runs.
Rowland trying to go the opposite way. Pujols. Ryan. Back to Pujols. 2 for the price of 1. And those aren't easy to do, especially with a right-handed throwing first baseman.
Well, you're looking tonight at the matchup that the Reds and Cardinals had with Leake and Carpenter on the mound. Had two of the more prolific ground ball pitchers in the league this year, and guys that throw a lot of ground ball double plays. That is number 19, if I'm not mistaken, for Chris Carpenter, which puts him right up there second in the league. Early in the game, Mike Leake threw his 19th of the year. The only guy with more is Tim Hudson from down in Atlanta. And the list that you see, I mean, a lot of people say, well, you don't have to be a ground ball pitcher to be a winner. But look at this list of pitchers, though. These are all guys having great years and premier pitchers in the league. And they are right up among the leaders in the number of ground ball double plays that they throw up there. Leake is right there. Had a bad night tonight? Yes. Would like to have a couple of pitches back, no doubt. But that's one of the encouraging things about Mike Leake as you look into the future. Don't forget that he's only 22 years old, but he's doing some things the right way.
He certainly is. Jim Edmonds, his second at-bat in a Reds uniform, looks at a strike. Haven't seen the number exactly, but somebody down in the clubhouse was talking that Jim Edmonds against Chris Carpenter was something like 7 for 20.
He was 7 for 20. That's a 350 batting average.
Swing and a miss. So Edmonds goes down. The Reds unable to scratch anything across here. 7-0 St. Louis after 4. Cardinals. Bases jacked, and Skip Schumacher with his first career grand slam. And they weren't even done then. There's 7 on the board in the 4th St. Louis. It's our Coors Hold Hard Blast. Home run number 4 on the season for the St. Louis second baseman. So they've been able to register significant offense. The Reds have been held to just 2 hits by Chris Carpenter.
I mean, you're not hitting 7th in the order because for no reason at all. And that was just a get-ahead fastball by Mike Leake, and you got to tip your hat to Schumacher. Put the good part of the bat on and drove it a long way.
Carlos Fisher, who came in to replace Mike Leake, continues working on the mound, and he'll begin with center fielder Colby Rasmus. 1 for 2 on the night. Rasmus grounded into a double play with an RBI. Be followed by Yadier Molina and then Skip Schumacher. Swing and a miss. Well, you talked about the need of somebody to work long innings. That was kind of the role that Micah Owings had been in, and Carlos Fisher with a chance to show now that he can maybe handle.
A lot of times you start that way in your career. You're never really sure where it's going to lead. Carlos Fisher has been a reliever down in the minor leagues, but he's got the kind of stuff that may lend himself to be more than just a long man. Maybe a middle reliever. Maybe down the road, if he picks up another pitch, he could be a starter. He's got a good arm. He's got kind of the opposite arm action of the guy the Reds just sent down to the minor leagues in Travis Wood. Travis Wood is a very quick arm, gets it up behind his ear quickly. And Carlos Fisher has a very long arm swing. Gets that baby down below his waist as you see it. He's got long arms anyway, and it's that arm arc has to go a long way to finally get up and get on top. And he's got to work very hard on his breaking pitches to get out in front because of that.
Count 2-2 to Colby Rasmus.
Like that.
Now full. Top of the 5th, 7-0. St. Louis with the lead, and he'll ring up Rasmus with a strikeout. The first of the night by Carlos Fisher, the third for Reds pitchers.
But he stayed behind this ball very nicely. Carlos Fisher did. Used his legs nice and just has a very deceptive fastball. Even though it's in the mid-90s, that fastball really doesn't sink at all. And you see the bat swing of Rasmus underneath it. His mind's eye is telling him that ball is going to sink a little bit. It did not happen.
Yadier Molina.
It's always good to have a mind's eye when you're hitting.
A mind's eye.
Is yours in HD?
High five.
All right.
Molina, a couple of base hits on the night. And want to mention again the Travis Wood situation for those who maybe didn't catch it. Travis Wood was the accompanying roster move with the trade of acquiring Jim Edmonds. He was optioned to Louisville, and it caught a lot of people off guard at first. However, Dusty Baker mentioned, as well as Walt Jocketty, the count is now 1-1 on Molina. Travis Wood was going to be skipped in his next turn in the rotation. They're eyeballing his innings much like they are Mike Leake, guys that have now reached the point of being close to, if not beyond, pitching more than they normally do. With a couple of off days and the way the rotation was going to work, Travis Wood was more than likely going to pitch on the 18th at Arizona. Now what will happen is he probably will end up starting on the 19th in Arizona, and then another accompanying roster move will have to be made. Point being, this was not something, as the strikeout is recorded of Molina. Travis Wood didn't do anything in a negative way to earn a trip to Louisville. Fisher gets Molina looking at strike 3. And up comes the culprit, Skip Schumacher. An opposite field grand slam home run. They started the Cardinals rolling and have them with that 7-0 advantage they currently enjoy. Off Fisher. And that'll be an infield base hit for Schumacher. As you can see, Carlos Fisher appears to be none the worse for wear.
Well, they're going to come to the top step of the dugout. Brian Price and Steve Bauman, the assistant trainer.
Almost got more glove.
Yeah, Fisher falls off a little bit towards the right side, over toward first base, and that ball coming right back up the middle is not a good matchup for him. A lot of power pitchers do that, and they don't fall into positions of good fielding, but that's the reason they're power pitchers, because they're really driving with their legs.
Chris Carpenter, 0 for 2. Carpenter with 6 base hits on the season. Carpenter, of course, speaking of former Toronto Blue Jays pitchers, how about Brendan Morrow yesterday? Took a no-hitter into the 9th with 2 outs, and Carpenter chases this one into right field, and it's nice running grab by Jay Bruce to end the inning. But it is still 7-0 St. Louis with the lead. .15th this weekend. The first 10,000 fans 14 and younger at the Reds-Marlins game receive a kid's catcher's backpack, and the backpack looks just like a catcher's chest protector. Get tickets now by calling 513-381-REDS or log on to reds.com. There's a look at that backpack, and you know, for those kids, there's not too many more weekends left before school's end, so you don't see the Reds.
The bad news out there for thousands of Cincinnati Reds fans. So be getting back to cracking open the books pretty soon.
Yes, they will. The Reds trying to crack into a 7-0 St. Louis lead here on the bottom of the 7th inning. Jay Bruce, Ramon Hernandez, and Paul Yanish will start the inning. Jay Bruce, a fly ball to right in his first at-bat, but he mentioned in his previous at-bat the day he had yesterday. 3 base hits, a couple RBIs in Chicago. Chris Carpenter, beneficiary right now of that 7-run 4th inning for St. Louis.
What he's doing now is coming right after the hitters, throwing first pitch strikes.
Why not?
And exactly. You got a 7-run lead. You know the Reds are going to be up there taking anyway. I mean, they're going to make you throw some pitches up there. And they're missing a chance on a lot of first pitch fastballs, but you've almost got to do it. You can't go out there and let Carpenter roll up a 5 or 6 pitch inning just because he's throwing fastballs on the first pitch.
Count is now 2-2 to the Reds right fielder. Meanwhile, Bill Bray is logging some work in the Cincinnati bullpen. Count now full. Jay Bruce certainly has been the Iron Man as far as appearances on the year for this baseball team. The only Reds player to have appeared in every game this year. Ball 4. Second walk, Carpenter is issued. So Ramon Hernandez, who is one of the 2 Reds base hits, a single in the second inning with 2 out. Chambers being held on at first by Albert Pujols, and Hernandez to center. Rasmus has it for the first out.
Hey, Reds fans, for great food with family and friends this summer, think JTM. Food, family, fun, JTM.
Sounds good. Somebody think it well enough that they'll surface up here.
I think we've got one more trip from the JTM chuck wagon coming by to feed the crew and the safety officers here at the ballpark.
Do you have any guess when it might be?
I'll be here from Michael Pickett and find out when that is.
Okay. Paul Janisch. Brendan Ryan will gather that for the second out.
I don't get that at all. I thought this team was on the same page there, that they were going to make Carpenter throw a little bit more than 1 pitch per at bat. But Hernandez and Janisch decide to chase after something, especially Janisch right there. Hernandez is understandable. That was the first pitch fastball, but he just chased the first pitch slider and popped it up on the end of the bat. You're 7 runs down.
Carlos Fisher is going to come up and hit. He is 0 for 3 at the dish this year. And there's a look at Chris Carpenter's pitch count per inning. They were making him work for a little while there. Meanwhile, that disaster inning, the Reds with a humongous pitch count in that 7-run 4th inning. Fisher had started the show bunt. Carpenter feeds him a strike. Mike Leake was a strikeout victim in his one appearance at the plate. So is Carlos Fisher. After 5, 7-0, St. Louis.
On Fox Sports Ohio as we move on to the 6th inning. If you're just joining us, Jim Day here with you. The news of the day: Jim Edmonds traded to Cincinnati for outfielder Chris Dickerson. Of course, Jim Edmonds no longer a Reds killer. He's been a Reds killer in the past, whether it be with his bat or certainly with his glove. How many times has he robbed the Reds? Certainly going over the fence to get one, and recently A game-winning home run off of Bronson Arroyo for the Milwaukee Brewer. So here's your chance to sound off, Reds fans. What do you think about this trade? It's our Meyer textbook question of the night. Do you welcome ex-Red killer Jim Edmonds to the team? Text 1 for yes. Yeah, he'll help the team. Or 2, no. You still can't forgive him. Text your votes to 37664. 37664. Standard text message rates apply. Our results coming up. I got to admit, guys, it's going to maybe take a few games to get used to him being in a Reds uni.
Looks good in that unit.
Hey, I'm all over it. You know, what it shows me is that the Reds think that this is a year in which they can go to the playoffs. And if they can add one piece, even if it's a guy that's not going to play every day. I mean, it cost them Chris Dickerson, maybe more than Reds really wanted to pay in the very first place. Remember that the Milwaukee Brewers signed Edmonds. Nobody else wanted to sign him. And they signed him this year after he did not play at all through 2009. And they got him in there as a minor league player in spring training for a look-see. So the Brewers did a pretty good job right there. They ended up with Chris Dickerson for a guy that all they did is invite to minor league spring training, or big league spring training on a minor league contract. So I think it helped both ball clubs in the long run. I never really thought this year anyway that Chris Dickerson, especially with the emergence of Chris Heisey, was a good fit for this club anymore. And they moved him, and I think that they helped themselves considerably with the acquisition of Jim Edmonds.
Well, and they bring a guy that's got World Series experience. He's played on 2 St. Louis teams that went to the World Series, one of whom that won when they beat Detroit. He was on the club that lost to Boston. And kind of adds the veteran presence that has been added by Roland and Cabrera. 2 are gone after groundouts by both Brendan Ryan and Felipe Lopez.
Well, Jim Edmonds will be the first to tell you that when he first broke on the scene as a member of the California Angels way back when, he was a guy that, you know, he thought he was better than everybody else. He wanted to go stretch alone in the corner. And Rod Carew, one of the coaches, pulled him aside and said, we don't play that over here. Chili Davis at that time was a veteran. That he pulled him aside and he said, you know what, you're part of the ball club right here. And Edmonds realized he had to check his ego at the door of the clubhouse. And I think he'll be able to give that same kind of big brother help to some of the young players the Reds have. I mean, remember that Heisey and Stubbs and Bruce and these guys are still learning how to prepare and how to play the game. And I think it's important to have professional guys around them like Jim Edmonds.
John Jay flares one that Paul Giannis backs up and grabs. The Cardinals go quietly, but have a 7-0 lead. Light freeze cam and a look at some of the highlight defensive plays over Jim Edmonds' 17-year major league career with the Angels, with the Cardinals. Of course, he also has had some time with the Cubs and the Padres and the Brewers, but you see there at Great American Ballpark, he was a Reds killer with some of his defensive gems.
You know, the ironic thing about that particular catch, I think that came off the bat of Jason LaRue, who is now a St. Louis Cardinal.
It's our Coors Light freeze can brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light. Jim Edmonds. You know, and you're talking about all of that leading into this year after not playing last year. Walt Jocketty said the Reds thought about signing him, and they had some discussions about it. But then that was before training camp, but just didn't think that it was something they were quite ready to do at that point in time. Brandon Phillips to lead off the bottom of the sixth for the Reds, who trail the Cardinals 7-0. All 7 of those runs coming in the Cards' fourth. 0 for so far tonight for Brandon Phillips. And Chris Carpenter just continuing to bedevil the Reds. And there was so much talk over recent years about the dominance that Roy Oswalt had over the Reds while with Houston. And you start somewhat thinking of Carpenter in that regard.
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever see anybody who dominates one ball club the way that Oswalt did the Reds for so many years. But Carpenter is certainly the modern day Roy Oswalt. The Reds finally got to Oswalt the last few times they faced him. Carpenter, they haven't figured out yet.
No, they have not. He has won 8 in a row against the Reds, including opening day. 3 starts this year. His last loss to the Reds, June 6th of 2006 in St. Louis. Count 2-2 to Brandon Phillips, who'll be followed by Lance Nix. Bullholz backhand. Carpenter there to get the first out secured. So 3-1 is how it is scored. Reds fans, come on down to Plum Street Cafe Friday at 6. It's your chance to test your Reds knowledge and win some great prizes. Plus, you could end up appearing on Reds Live after the game on Fox Sports Ohio. Be part of the fun at Plum Street Cafe. Been a few years, but a very nice establishment, as recall.
Well, get back on in there.
Really? Lance Nixon. Next to Daddy Wags, Mark Wagner. They know the fact this is the 4th time in Lance's career he has started a game in the number 2 spot in the batting order. And he has one of the 2 base hits the Reds have come up with tonight. The other, Ramon Hernandez. It will be interesting to see how Dusty Baker utilizes these outfielders now. Basically right now one more outfielder that had been in the mix with Edmonds coming in. Still got Gomes and Stubbs and Heisey, as well as Jay Bruce. And that's what led to a lot of the questioning before this trade today. How was Chris Dickerson going to figure into the mix, if he was? Strike. Chris Dickerson was having a pretty good rehab stint with Louisville, recovering from that hand injury. Toward the end of the rehab stint, he had to leave the bats because of the death of his grandmother out in California. Called strike 3 on Lance Nix. 5th strikeout for Chris Carpenter. He's cooking with gas.
Well, he is the kind of pitcher like most starters are. Once you start getting a little bit of a rhythm out there, there's the grip on the pitch that we're going to see that Lance Nix did not see very well. The big overhand curveball, he throws it with a lot of spin and not a lot of speed. That pitch is in the mid-70s. And he's got such great arm action on it, and he's established his fastball so much early in the game that you give up on that baby.
With 2 outs, it's Joey Votto facing Carpenter.
It's a good night to pitch. A lot of people say, boy, it's hot and humid. How can you say that? It's in the 90s. Well, humidity helps pitchers that have good curveballs because there's a little bit of water in the air and it can grip the baseball a little bit better. It's so difficult to pitch a curveball, say out in Arizona or in Denver where the air is very thin. But you get a nice hot humid night in Cincinnati or right along the Mississippi and St. Louis, you can drop some serious yackers on them.
Called strike. There's Carpenter working up a pretty good sweat under those elements. Finished 2nd in the Cy Young voting last year. We mentioned he won it in 2005. The start of business tonight. Joey Votto, second in the National League in hitting, tied for second in home runs, sixth in RBIs. Leads the league in on-base percentage, slugging percentage, hitting against right-handed pitchers, etc., etc., etc. 2-2 the count. Think we'll ever see another Triple Crown runner?
Sure.
You're serious?
Yeah, why not?
I thought you were being facetious.
No.
Okay. And for those who maybe aren't quite savvy to what we're talking about, Triple Crown being average, home runs, RBIs.
Right.
Joey Votto's certainly a guy that's capable. Base hit. Couple of bases. Third knock of the night, and it comes from Joey Votto, and he continues to show his excellence at going the opposite way.
Well, when you say capable, you're exactly right about Joey Votto, and this at bat is the exact reason why Votto, you would think, would be in that small group of players who could be a Triple Crown winner. Most of the time, you get the home run leader, also leads the league in runs batted in. That's not an unusual stat, but to have the combination of a high batting average with that kind of power is highly unusual. But Joey Votto can do that because he takes pitches like that, and instead of trying to pull them out of the ballpark, he rockets them down opposite field inside the line.
And also because of how much he gets on base, tied at the start of the night with Brandon Phillips and Ricky Weeks in the National League with a run scored. So a two-out opportunity for Scott Rowland. Rounded into a fielder's choice and into a double play.
Rowland has gone up since that 7-run lead by the Cardinals and has taken the first pitch he's seen from Chris Carpenter in each of his 2 at-bats.
He finds himself down 0-2. Cardinals were the second of Scott Rowland's 4 major league teams. He began his career with Philadelphia, then to St. Louis, then to Toronto, and then traded here last year from the Blue Jays to the Reds for Edwin Encarnacion. 2 outs, Votto at second. The Reds down by 7. That'll get out of play. Both the series the Reds have gone into St. Louis, you hear the Cardinal fans with their applause and their respect, showing their regard for Scott Rowland. Wasn't quite the same going to Philly. But as you mentioned, that weekend in Philadelphia, they booed Santa Claus. And Mike Schmidt.
And pelted him with snowballs. Twice.
And couldn't wait for Donovan McNabb to get out of that city. Lopez backing up. And that'll take care of it. After 6, the Cardinals with a 7-0 lead over the Reds. Brought to you by AT&T. Find out what's possible with the nation's fastest 3G network. AT&T. Rethink possible. By your Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky Honda dealers. Visit myCincinnatiHondaDealer.com for current offers. And by Hollywood Casino. Nobody has to yell action here. It's Hollywood Casino, Lawrenceburg. And there's a little river activity outside the stadium between Ohio and Kentucky. 7-0. St. Louis with a lead. As we move to the top of the 7th inning, and as Albert Pujols comes to the plate, a look comparatively at what he has done, and the Reds all-star first baseman Joey Votto hit down. Certainly MVP type resumes. Carlos Fisher continues to work out onto the mound for the Reds. Came in the 4th after Mike Leake had yielded 6. The 7th run came in that was charged to Leake. There's a look at what Albert Pujols has done on the night. 7-0 St. Louis, top of the 7th. These two teams will be here tomorrow night. We hope you can make plans to come down to Great American. Johnny Cueto against Jaime Garcia. And then Wednesday afternoon, Bronson Arroyo and Adam Wainwright. Both of those games for you here on Fox Sports Ohio. Fisher in need of a strike to Pujols. And he gets it. Well, Larry Vanover took his time, don't you think? Maybe it was just a dramatic pause. 3-1. There's ball 4. Second walk given up of the night by Carlos Fisher. Matt Holliday will be the batter with Pujols on at first. Kroger and the Reds proud to team up to offer you a great value this season. Check concession stands throughout the ballpark for the Kroger meal deal, which includes a full-size adult hot dog, a 16-ounce Coke, and during this homestand, a delicious Chex Mix Turtle Bar. All for $7. The Kroger meal deal. Can't beat it. Matt Holliday. Couple of base hits and an RBI on the night. After those 2 games with St. Louis following tonight, then an off day on Thursday, and the Reds will host the Florida Marlins over the weekend. The team that St. Louis just got done playing. That rainout yesterday the Cardinals had. They have yet to determine a date in which that game will be made up. I don't know if they've had a chance to sit down and combine the schedules, but did hear something that there's a possibility it could have to be played after the regular season is over, the day after.
Now, that's one thing that certainly goes into Reds' favor. Coming into ball game tonight, the Reds have played 2 more games than the Cardinals have, and they've won both of those. That constitutes the 2-game lead. Cardinals will possibly have to play the last, 30 days or 31 days of the season without a day off. So it could come down to a question of stamina for these ball clubs to see who makes the postseason. But of course, after this homestand, the Reds are embark on a West Coast trip. And the West Coast has not been kind to Dusty Baker's crew over the last couple of years. Meanwhile, the Cardinals will not go west of Houston between now and the end of the year.
Count 1-2 to Matt Holliday. They have Thursday, September the 2nd as an off day, and that's it through the tail end. Well, the Reds have that same day as an off day, and then also have Monday, the 27th of September, going down the stretch. These two teams will meet Labor Day weekend for Friday, Saturday, Sunday series in St. Louis. 1-2, Carlos Fisher against Matt Holliday. He got him.
Carlos Carlos has really turned himself into pretty much a two-pitch pitcher. He's got a fastball that goes 94 to 95, maybe even 96, and that nice little slider right there. Really, the only thing that's missing from Fisher's repertoire is the ability to repeat that slider more consistently.
His third strikeout tonight. Mike Leake had a couple. Colby Rasmus shatters his weapon. Rasmus 1 for 3 with a base hit and an RBI. Well, a big house here at Great American Ballpark, and they're sitting waiting for something to get excited about. St. Louis with a 7-run fourth inning that went over everybody here like a wet blanket. You know, how about a little tip of the hat to the stadium game management folks here, because right after that 7-run inning, as Fisher gets ready with the #1 pitch. Here at the stadium on the scoreboard, they played the video highlights of Lou Pinella's tirade where he picked up the base and threw it all around. Great move to try and get some folks fired up after things hadn't gone. 0-2 to Rasmus. St. Louis, after this series and an off day on Thursday, will go home to take on the Chicago Cubs. It'll be the start of a homestand that will have them at home then with Milwaukee and San Francisco. And the Reds, while they're home all week, save the off day on Thursday. Then, after Sunday's game in Florida, have a 9-game, 3-city West Coast trip to engage upon. Now even to Colby Rasmus. Carlos Fisher in his third stint with the Reds, having shuttled back and forth between here and AAA Louisville. And when Carlos was called up on Saturday, it kind of got everybody into the questioning mode again about Aroldis Chapman.
Well, Aroldis Chapman has thrown the ball extremely well. It seems like he's getting better with each successive outing down in Louisville. From what I understand, he hit 103 on the radar gun during last night's ball game, a ball game in which he picked up a save and an inning plus of work.
And I read somewhere the comment was he will be here.
Well, he's the kind of guy that could be a difference maker if this ball club's able to make the postseason. And he would be the type of pitcher that you could have a dramatic impact on a short series.
Called strike 3. So down goes Colby Rasmus for the second inning.
But it's pitching has not been the problem. Tonight it may have been, but for the most part, the Reds, when they've lost very tight ball games. Backdoor breaking ball right there with some help of some framing from Ramon Hernandez. Larry Vanover buys into it.
Fourth strikeout for Carlos Fisher, the 6th between he and Mike Leake. Yadier Molina. A couple of base hits and an RBI. He looked at a called third strike in the 5th inning. The 15th straight game he has started behind the plate for Tony La Russa. And waves misses it there.
Well, he was one of the guys that was really important in this ball game. He had base hits the first couple of times up. Molina did, even though he never did much on the base pass in the second inning, but he kept that inning alive with nobody out, so that Skip Schumacher came to the plate with the bases loaded.
That was an infield single.
By getting that little infield single between the third baseman and the shortstop.
Pujols over at first after getting a walk, and another swing and a miss by Yadier Molina.
Of course, it was the home run by Schumacher that is the major difference maker in this ball game.
A grand salami, the first of his career. And He is the on-deck batter, Skip Schumacher. 1-2 to Yadier Molina. Now 2-2. The backup is Jason LaRue, who you mentioned earlier, Chris. Guy that really, he and Molina both, when the season started, there were questions about the Cardinals with their catching situation. Both had been banged up at the end of spring training.
Well, exactly right. And Molina really was not supposed to make the first start of the season. The opening day game here, Chris Carpenter pitched. Molina, if you remember, hit an opposite field home run.
Was that also not a grand slam?
It was a grand slam.
Count now full. When Molina did that, he joined Scott Rowland and Mark McGwire as the only Cardinals to ever hit grand slams on opening day.
They keep a stat for that, huh?
They do. Pujols on the move. Foul ball. Is there not a stat in baseball that they don't keep? You know what I mean?
Only the ones you haven't mentioned yet.
Okay.
Because as soon as you mention it, someone will start to track.
Start tracking it. There's Mark McGwire. First year as a batting coach for the Cardinals.
So if you're thinking of a good one, don't say anything.
Well, like what you were talking about yesterday, the small ball stats.
I didn't realize they did that. I was very encouraged, really, by the numbers there. I don't know how the Reds stack up with other teams when it comes to playing small ball, but it seemed like for years this Reds ball club could not score a run unless they hit a home run. Big time difference this year.
Molina down on strikes. A career high 5 strikeouts for Carlos Fisher. 7-0. St. Louis with a lead. Time now for the Haynes Comfort Zone. Combined pitching stats for Logan Ondrusek and Jordan Smith. See what they have done since the All-Star break, and you can't help but take notice of that.
Pretty good work those two young fellas have put in for the Reds right now. What are they looking up there? They must have read that there's a media shower coming through this week.
And they're trying to get an early bird's eye view for it. But 0 in the earned run column there. Of course, Ondrusek is teetering on that territory that earlier in the year Arthur Rhodes was around. Logan Ondrusek has a 21-inning scoreless streak. And Arthur Rhodes earlier in the season, which helped him get to the All-Star game, went 30 innings without giving a run. 7-0 St. Louis, and Cincinnati comes batting in the bottom of the 7th inning. Jim Edmonds to lead it off, still looking for his first hit in a Reds uniform. acquired earlier today from Milwaukee in the trade for Chris Dickerson.
You know, there's so many ironies and connections between these two ball clubs. It was Jim Edmonds that when he first came over here from the California Angels as a free agent, signed, or maybe, I don't know if he was drafted or free agent, I have to look that up, but that was the same year that Ken Griffey Jr. was traded over from Seattle. And there was a little bit of an internal competition. You know, neither of those players wanted to admit it, but they both had to acknowledge the fact that they both came over from the American League West. They're both in the same division now, and they're playing head-to-head 18 times a year.
And, of course, Jim Edmonds missed out on the Angels winning the World Series back in 2002. 3-1 the count to the Reds center fielder. And Edmonds to left. A nice grab by Matt Holliday on the run for the first out of the inning. And that'll bring Jay Bruce to the plate. There's Matt Holliday, who went tracking that down.
Well, that's very classic Jim Edmonds, hitting the ball the other way, waiting late. And, you know, it was Jim Edmonds, when he was traded from the Cardinals away, provided an opportunity for Skip Schumacher to step in and play every day as an outfielder in St. Louis. And, of course, Schumacher eventually was shifted to the infield when they figured out he wasn't going to be a big enough power hitter. But he's flexed his muscles tonight.
And you saw in that replay, too, some of that classic Jim Edmonds swing, almost as he finishes with one hand off the bat and one hand hanging on, coming through. You know, and in his younger days, some of that swing almost looked like, not as pronounced, but almost like the big looping swing that Darryl Strawberry used to have. He certainly looks happy to be in a Reds uniform, Jim Edmonds. And, you know, when he was queried down in the clubhouse before the game, asked about playing time, and at that point he said there hadn't been a discussion about how much. He said he'll play as much or as little as they want him to. Gave all of the answers of being an ultimate team type of guy.
Well, it gives Dusty Baker a chance and some alternatives for an extra left-handed hitter of some experience. And a guy that might be pushed a little bit is a guy at the plate right now, Jay Bruce, who got off to a very good start, hit .307 with 3 home runs in the month of June, and then went into a slump where he hit 200 in July, and right now he's hitting .217. So if you want to give Bruce a work day off, you can insert Edmonds and certainly not miss a thing.
This year, Jim Edmonds, 43 games at center, 7 in right, and 1 game at first base while with Milwaukee. Bruce coaxes the 3rd walk of the night out of Chris Carpenter. To Ramon Hernandez. A base hit and a fly ball to center for the Reds catcher. And Chris Carpenter just zipping right along with a 7-0 lead. Hernandez 3 RBIs in the just completed road trip by the Reds, with 3 base hits. Look at some of the numbers as far as base hits from that road trip. 6 for Johnny Gomes, 7 for Chris Heisey, 6 for Paul Janich. That's as far as numbers of base hits. The Reds swept Chicago and took all but 1 in Pittsburgh. And Hernandez lines one to left. Bruce on his way to 3rd. Bruce is going to be waved home. Hernandez gallops into second base with an RBI double, and the Reds are on the board. (7-1) St. Louis. RBI number 33 for Ramon Hernandez.
Well, a 1-out walk and a double by Hernandez right here on an inside fastball that did not get inside enough for the likings of Chris Carpenter. Rifled down the line, and boy, does Bruce really turn it on. He's thinking at first to 3rd, but then this ball kind of kicks around the corner a little bit. And when Matt Holliday takes an extra second to get it, Mark Berry waves on Jay Bruce, and the Reds finally get a run.
And Dave Duncan is going to come out and talk with Chris Carpenter, as well as Yadier Molina. You know, we've all discussed how well the Reds have done going from first to third, and it's that kind of aggressiveness that got Bruce in position to score.
Exactly right. Boy, they set the standards pretty high right there in St. Louis, don't they? Here's a guy throwing a four-hitter with one, finally gives up a run, and he's going to get a talking to by his pitching coach.
Yeah, that is high standards.
I don't see any. There is some activity down now in the Cardinal bullpen. Carpenter's at 85 pitches. And it's been hot and humid for the Cardinals. I mean, it was scorching hot before they went on this recent road trip. And this trip that they're on right now is a two-city trip. They were scheduled to play 3 games in Florida. Obviously very warm down there. They waited 4 hours to finally get their game postponed yesterday. It's going to be hot here in Cincinnati this week. They want to give Carpenter a little bit of a breather if he can get through this 7th inning without much more damage.
Blake Hawksworth is who is working in the bullpen for St. Louis. Paul Janisch, the one-out batter. So Carpenter's yielded a run. And Janisch looks at a strike. You know, I was talking with John Rooney before the game, one of the Cardinals radio announcers, and he said it was nicer in Miami than it had been in St. Louis or here in Cincinnati, which you don't usually find. One and one, the count to Paul Janisch. With 1 out, 1 on, and a run in.
Pick up a run here, keep the momentum going a little bit.
Another strike. Just to plant the seed, the last time the Reds overcame a 7-run deficit to win a game was June 30th of 2006 against Cleveland. Game the Reds won 9-8. They trailed 7-0 in the 8th. Just to throw it out there. Thanks, Daddy Wags. Janisch to Felipe Lopez. And Pujols hangs on to get the out recorded. Lopez didn't do him any favors. Second out of the inning.
Well, Mark Wagner, the first base umpire, is going to come over here and make sure that Albert Pujols at least touches the bag for a moment on this wild throw by Felipe Lopez, and he's on it. Did he pick the ball up in time? Yes.
And before throwing, Lopez did what he needed to do to look Hernandez back to second. So now Juan Francisco will be called on to pinch hit for Carlos Fisher. Base hit and a couple of RBIs yesterday in Chicago for Juan Francisco. 7-1 Cardinals with a lead, but the Reds still with a threat going. Hernandez out at second. Francisco looks at ball 1. He, of course, was called up last week when Orlando Cabrera was put on the disabled list with that oblique injury. Here's a look at what Juan has done this year. Had a couple of starts. Was on the opening day roster, but that was because Mike Leake had not yet been activated. And then once the Reds had that need for that 5th starter, then Juan was sent down to Louisville. And struggled at first at Louisville, but had a very, very good July for the Bats. Yadier Molina will go out and talk with Chris Carpenter again. He was the minor league player of the month in the Reds organization for July, hitting .302 with 28 RBIs and 11 homers. And late in 2009, Chris showed that he's a guy that can be part of the plan somewhere, maybe.
Well, I think he's going to hit. There's no question about it. Every scout that I've talked to that has been down to Louisville to see the bats have told me this guy can rake. The question is, where is he going to play? Scott Rowland is signed for 2 more years. He can play first base. Francisco can. He can also play outfield, at least left field. But if you hit, they'll find a spot for you.
Yeah, well, first base is kind of a crowded predicament there. Votto and Alonso Yonder. 2-0 to Francisco. 2-1. Here's what Juan has done in his combined time through 2009 and 2010 with the Reds. They're trying to put Chris Carpenter's feet to the fire. And a base hit for Francisco. Hernandez is going to be waved around to score. 7-2 Cardinals, but the Reds getting some offense back.
Well, that's a little bit of maturity taking over right here for Juan Francisco. He saw a 2-0 fastball, a sinker, just like the one that Carpenter throws him right there on the very previous pitch. And if you try to pull that ball, you're going to make an out. So he takes what Carpenter gives him, which is a single to left field, keeps the inning alive, and the Reds now have begun to whittle away a little bit.
And back to the top of the order in Brandon Phillips, who is looking for his first base hit of the night. And we'll keep an eye out and see how long Tony La Russa may give Chris Carpenter. A 7-run lead is now a 5-run lead. Strike one to Brandon Phillips. 3 groundouts for the Reds All-Star second baseman. Phillips 0 for 4 Saturday. That snapped a 5-game hitting streak. 95 pitches now for Chris Carpenter. Francisco, after a pinch hit RBI single, is at first.
Well, the Reds are being more patient, and Chris Carpenter is being more liberal with the number of pitches that he's throwing. In fact, nearly half the pitches that he has thrown in his ball game, he has thrown in the last 2 innings.
Ball strike. There's a look at the breakup.
Yeah, this will most assuredly be Carpenter's last inning, but you'd like to run his earning up a little bit. With a couple of more runs, maybe Brandon Phillips can run into one right here.
5 for 29 in his career against Chris Carpenter is Brandon Phillips. And that one, a high chopper that Brendan Ryan will get. And the inning comes to an end. But the Reds scratch a couple across. After 7, it's 7-2 St. Louis. For the ones who get it done, like Chris Carpenter.
Well, you got to give the guy some credit. He has dominated the Reds in his career, 10-3. He's looking to make that 11-3, but with 7 innings of 2-run baseball. And he's a big game pitcher, no doubt about it. I'll tell you what, the top 3 pitchers in this Cardinal rotation: Carpenter, the left-hander Jaime Garcia, who the Reds will see tomorrow, and then Adam Wainwright, big, tall right-hander with a hammer of a curveball, pitches on Wednesday afternoon. They are 3 of the best pitchers that you'll find up and down any rotation in all of baseball.
And certainly Tony La Russa and Dave Duncan set their rotation so they could have those three going just like that for the series.
I think that, you have to prepare yourself going into a series like this that this is going to be a low-scoring ball game, at least on one side, because Carpenter's not going to give up very much. And Garcia hasn't given up much, although he doesn't have the ability like Carpenter and Wainwright to go quite as deep in the games.
Bill Bray is the new pitcher on the mound for the Reds, coming out of the bullpen following Carlos Fisher, who followed Mike Leake.
Am I wrong, or did Carpenter look like he was angry?
A little.
Giving up a couple of runs there in the 7th inning?
You said it before, high standards.
Yeah.
There's Bill Bray's numbers. Skip Schumacher, who's got the big blow of the night, is leading off the inning. A grand slam. That was the big blow in the 7-run fourth for the Cardinals. The first career grand slam he's hit in his 4th long one of the year. 2-1 the count now. Bill Bray in his last 6 appearances, 4 innings, 1 earned run, so he showed some stinginess. Coming back himself from Tommy John surgery. 3-1. Bill Bray came to the Reds in that same deal that sent Felipe Lopez from Cincinnati to Washington. Needs a strike against Schumacher, and he gets it in the inside corner.
Schumacher's an interesting story. He's a guy that the Cardinals have, and they had him in the outfield, left field, center field, right field through the first 4 or 5 years of his career. Then last year he made the switch to being a full-time second baseman.
Called strike 3. See you later. That's the 8th strikeout for the Reds pitchers.
After a couple of hits, including a grand slam, they finally get him. This one on a fastball that Schumacher thought was ball 4.
He sure did. Well, Alan Craig will now be the pinch hitter to bat for Chris Carpenter. By the way, Carlos Fisher finished his night with a career-high 5 strikeouts. So Craig, the pinch hitter, here in the 8th inning. If things stand as they are, Chris Carpenter would get his 13th win of the year. Alan Craig, who has been back and forth between St. Louis and their AAA team in Memphis, called up on Tuesday, his 4th call-up to the big club this year. So the count is 2-0. On Alan Craig, who's been used both in the infield and the outfield for Tony La Russa. So the strike. Delbrian Ludwig away to San Diego. Got Jake Westbrook from Cleveland. And that one goes foul. When the Reds get it done with an RBI this season, that means another $25 from Shakely for the Reds Community Fund. Shakely, it's done. 36,353 tonight here at Great American Ballpark. A big turnout. Certainly it's anticipated there'll be such tomorrow and Wednesday, but love to see you come down to the ballpark and see the Reds and the Cardinals. Craig with a swing and a miss. So he's gone. Second strikeout for Bray, the 9th for the trio of Reds pitchers. And that's 5 strikeouts in a row.
Well, the relief corps has been excellent all year long. It seems like the strength of this ball club, like it has been in years past. And even though we've got different faces up now than we had early in the year, remember Bill Bray was still rehabbing from Tommy John surgery early in the year.
And it hasn't seemed like he's needed much of a warm-up period once again.
No, not really at all. I mean, he's always been a reliever, Bray has, which makes you kind of curious as to what his high school coach was thinking. with an arm like that, he didn't want to pitch him as a starter. But he did the same thing in college when he went to William and Mary, and here he is in short relief with the Reds.
Brendan Ryan fouls out to Jay Bruce. 7-2 Cardinals ahead of the Reds. Game of fireworks. Join the Reds as they take on the Marlins Friday night, August 13th at Great American, and stick around for the free post-game fireworks spectacular. Get tickets now by calling 513-381-REDS or log on to Reds.com. It'll be this Friday night, the Reds and the Marlins here at Great American Ballpark. 7-2 St. Louis with a lead. We move to the bottom of the 8th inning as Cincinnati will come to the plate and face a new St. Louis pitcher, Trevor Miller.
Well, you got a couple of left-handers coming up in Lance Nix and Joey Votto, and then Scott Rowland and another left-hander in Jim Edmonds. And that's why they're bringing the 37-year-old southpaw from Louisville, Kentucky, a veteran of many different ball clubs, made his major league debut for Detroit in 1996.
Yes, as you said, he's been around, and he'll face the pinch hitter in Chris Heisey. Bats for Lance Nix. Nix 1 for 3 with a couple of strikeouts on the night. Chris Heisey, one base hit yesterday. As he led off and played in center and flies this one to Albert Pujols at first for the first out.
Chased the changeup.
Chased it right into Pujols mid. Joey Votto will stand in, and there's a look at some of the big crowd that's here tonight, 36,000 plus, and it kind of was like a playoff atmosphere around town all day. Be much of the same tomorrow and Wednesday. Votto with a big rip and a miss against Trevor Miller. It was a week ago tonight. Trevor Miller, coming in relief against Houston, allowed a season high 3 home runs. Joey Votto's night of work on the television screen.
You know, if you're serious about being an MVP or a Triple Crown candidate, these are the kind of at-bats you can't let go. You grind them out just like there's a man on second base. And some players aren't up to that, but I think Votto is the kind of guy that is. He is just so ultra competitive.
On his last at-bat, he showed a pretty good piece of hitting by taking a pitch into left field for a double. 1-2 the count. Scott Rowland on deck. 7-2 Cardinals with the lead. Right back at Miller. 2 out. Self-defense.
You know, I say that, Paul, about not giving at bats away, because I remember playing for Pete Rose when he was managing as a player manager for the Reds back in the mid-'80s, and And he was amazed that there were some players on either team, whether it was his own team or the opposition, who late in the game, if his team was in control, it would seem like they go through the motions. And he just would shake his head and say, I never understand how a player can ever give an at-bat away. And Votto, battling hard right there, hits a line drive right back at the pitcher.
I would imagine that'd be hard if you were playing for Pete Rose to do anything that would be construed as giving an at-bat away.
Well,
applied to the pitchers, too.
Guys that do it because they're wired that way. Some of them are, some of them are not. They're not all wired like Pete, I can tell you that.
Scott Rowland spanks one foul. Logan Ondrusek working. Probably nobody ever wired like Pete Rose. One can only imagine what the discussions may have been with Sparky Anderson or Dave Bristol or whoever when they tried to talk to Pete about having a day off. Could you imagine how that might go? Not very well, I would think.
Why would you ask him to have a day off?
Or why would you try and tell him to have a day off? You see him in both ends of doubleheaders.
He was ready to play even on off days.
Yes, he was. 2-2 to Scott Rowland, who's 0 for tonight. Jim Edmonds on deck. Tomorrow night, Johnny Cueto and Jaime Garcia. Wednesday afternoon, Bronson Arroyo and Adam Wainwright. And the homestand continues with Friday, Saturday, Sunday games with the Marlins. Payoff pitch from Trevor Miller to Scott Rowland. Ball 4. So Rowland on base for the first time tonight. The fourth walk given up by the combination of Miller and Carpenter. And up comes Jim Edmonds. Everybody knows about Jim Edmonds as a player, but Al Hrabowski stuck his head in here earlier and was talking to us about just what kind of a guy he is and how that by itself would lend something to this ball. Mile high pop up, and that takes care of the Reds here in the 8th. 7-2 St. Louis. The game, and it comes from Albert Pujols. Fielding this ground ball thrown by Felipe Lopez, and Pujols with great presence in the bag.
It was actually Pujols that had that ball in his glove and then dropped it and had the wherewithal to pick it up in time. That would have kept an inning alive, and you never know what would have happened.
There's Albert Pujols.
There's a guy that plays every day. Or
yes.
Pretty close to it.
Yes, he does. 7-2 Cardinals with a lead. Logan Ondrusek is the new pitcher for the Reds. As he comes out of the bullpen. The fourth Cincinnati pitcher of the night. And he's been pitching at a pretty high level lately.
But if you call throwing zeros on the board, and that is about as high as the level as you can get. And for a guy that already measures 6'8" when he stands on the mound, that's also pretty high.
A 21-inning scoreless streak. Has not allowed a run in any of his last 19 appearances. Starts off this inning working against Felipe Lopez.
What a nice job the Reds relievers have done in this game. You know, you don't get much credit for it when you come up and do a little mop-up action. Carlos Fisher's here for that reason. You call him a long man, you call him whatever you want, but bottom line is that he's going to pitch extended innings in a mop-up situation or in an extra inning game. It gives you so much more confidence when you go out and do what you did, as Fisher did tonight, on that occasion when the game goes into 13th or 14th inning and Dusty Baker finds himself nearly out of pitchers, and all of a sudden it's a guy like Carlos Fisher in there for an extended period.
There's the streak we were talking about with Logan Ondrusek.
21 innings.
And you've talked about it a number of times. He's a much different pitcher than the one that began the year on the Major League roster. And he gets a strikeout of Felipe Lopez to start the ninth.
You got to hand it to the Red scouting department because they knew what they had in Logan Ondrusek this spring. I had not seen him pitch at all before we saw him in Goodyear this year. And he came on the scene, and, you know, sometimes spring training can fool you. You can have a real good month of March and look like you're a Cy Young Award winner. Then when the regular season begins, you can get your brains beat in. But they knew that what they were talking about when they decided to keep this kid.
Works inside on John Jay. Ondrusek was called up on June 1st. Since then, in 26 appearances, an ERA of 0.68. From Shiner, Texas, Logan Ondrusek. 7-2 St. Louis. All 7 of the Cardinal runs came in the 4th inning. John Jay tonight, a base hit and a walk, which make up his evening. And a ground down and a fly ball out. His base hit was a double, and he got around from home plate to second base in a pretty quick hurry. The middle, his second base hit of the night, John Jay. The Cardinals with another runner on base. And after every Reds game, Fox Sports Ohio breaks down the game and talks to the stars of the game and manager Dusty Baker on Reds Live, brought to you by Kings Honda and the Kings Auto Mall. Visit KingsHondaUSA.com. Jim Day and Jeff Pecoro will take care of that.
They want to wish Jim and Judy Robinson of Zanesville, Ohio, a happy 46th wedding anniversary. Their kids, Mike, Beth, and Matt, up in Z-Town, Zanesville. You're a little familiar with Zanesville, aren't you?
Yep, it's a little more than an hour from Columbus, going east on I-70. Heard you and Tom talking yesterday, how you drove through there, coming back from Pittsburgh.
Big Buckeye country, boy.
Yes, it is.
They're flying the flags up there.
And big Reds fans. Albert Pujols. A couple of base hits, an RBI, and a walk. Since 2001, Albert has played in the 5th most games over that span, 1,509 games. Currently 4th, and Orlando Cabrera is at 1,510. And the other little nugget that Daddy Wags pulled out for us while we were waxing nostalgic about Pete Rose, as the count is now 0-2 to Albert Pujols with 1 out. Pete Rose from 1973 to 1978 missed a total of 5 games. He's played all over the outfield. Pujols bangs it to Rolla. Feeds it to Phillips. On Devato, double play. After 8.5, 7-2. Cardinals with a lead. Reds coming to bat. By Quikrete. Visit Quikrete.com. Quikrete, it's what America's made of. By Jeep. I live, I ride, I am Jeep. By Loveza. And by Cincinnati Children's, in the top 10 for all selected pediatric specialties in U.S. News and World Report's 2010 Best Children's Hospitals. Bottom of the ninth here at Great American Ballpark. The Reds in need of a come-from-behind effort as they trail the Cardinals 7-2, and certainly that is not unfamiliar territory for Cincinnati. The Reds and the Braves ranked second in the major league with 33 come-from-behind wins, and the Reds second in the majors with 15 wins in their last at-bat. And they will start the bottom of the ninth with a pinch hitter, Miguel Cairo.
And that'll prompt Tony La Russa to march out of the dugout and make a pitching change. And they had this all planned. I mean, La Russa knew that they were going to try to get a right-hander in to face Trevor Miller. And you know what? Sometimes killing a rally before it starts is better than trying to bring in somebody to throw water on the fire after it's beginning to get out of control. And that has always been this pitching change philosophy of Tony La Russa.
Kyle McClellan will come on and replace Trevor Miller. We'll see what Dusty Baker will do. 7-2, St. Louis with the lead over the Reds here in the bottom of the ninth. Miguel Cairo pinch hitting for Jay Bruce here in the bottom of the ninth, leading it off for the Reds, who trail 7-2 to St. Louis. Kyle McClellan is the new reliever for the Cardinals.
Well, McClellan was going to get in this inning one way or another. I mean, he had the gate open. Really, when the inning began, the only question was whether if Jay Bruce was going to bat for himself, they would have left Trevor Miller in. But as soon as that at-bat would have been taken care of, whether by Bruce or they pinch hit a right-hander like Cairo, here comes McClellan.
There's a look at Miguel Cairo's numbers on the year. A couple of base hits yesterday and an RBI at Chicago.
We see it happen so much with Tony La Russa. You know, he would prefer never to have an uprising or a rally go on that he has to address. So oftentimes he'll make a lot of pitching changes in what looks like a blowout ball game in order to keep that other team down continually.
It's Tony La Russa, the Cardinal manager. Miguel Cairo, who played in St. Louis during his long career. Has a 3-game hitting streak going, does Miguel Cairo. And hits this one into left field. Convergence, but caught by Holiday for the first out. Jay Bruce, by the way, 0 for 1 with a couple of walks. So Ramon Hernandez, the one-out batter. 2 base hits and an RBI for the Cincinnati backstop. Paul Janisch would follow. Then we'd be at the number 9 spot, the pitcher spot. The big difference in this game, a 7-run 4th inning for St. Louis. Skip Schumacher played at 4 of those with his first career grand slam. A strike to Hernandez. There's Schumacher, who did the damage. Hernandez trying to go the opposite way, and he tagged that one pretty good to right field. See you later. Home run number 5 for Ramon Hernandez. 7-3. Reds still on the short end.
Well, he has been just about all the offense the Reds have been able to muster tonight. Hit a double to score Jay Bruce earlier, came around to score the second Reds run, and here he scores the third one with an opposite poke to right.
So 7-3. Reds in the short end with 1 out. Paul Janisch is in. And Paul looking for his first knock of the night. On deck, Johnny Gomes. A strike to Paul Janisch. Here's that comeback we talked about earlier. The last time the Reds came from 7 down to win. And Janisch goes down in a heap, and they're going to say, they're going to call the strike. I saw him pointing toward first at first. Not maybe they're going to say hit, but they're saying he went around enough for it to be a strike.
I guess if you follow the action of the bat, technically he did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call that a swing. At least not one you practice.
Got a piece of that. Count remains 1-2 on the Red shortstop. Since the All-Star break, Kyle McClellan an ERA of 0.87, which is the 6th best in the National League. Lopez backing. 2. Speaking of that comeback we talked about in 2006, remember correct, it was a Saturday afternoon game here at Great American. And Adam Dunn stroked it into the bullpen. So Johnny Gomes will be the pinch hitter. In the 9th spot, the Reds got an RBI base hit in the 7th from pinch hitter Juan Francisco. Johnny Gomes, you see those numbers, but he also, and has been for a while, sitting on 99 career home runs. It's been since July the 19th that he's gone deep. Base hit, Johnny Gomes to keep the 9th going. Down but not done. And back to the top of the order in Brandon Phillips.
Well, Johnny Gomes is always ready to hit it. Doesn't matter what time it is. He picked up his batting average a little bit over the last couple of days in Chicago and continues to swing the bat well. He'll be in the lineup tomorrow night, almost guaranteed. Gomes against the left-hander Jaime Garcia.
So 7-3, the Cardinals with the lead, and with 2 outs here in the bottom of the 9th, the Reds trying to manufacture more offense. They've already scored once on a Ramon Hernandez home run. Would appear, as we understand, word coming up from Jeff Pecora that Tony La Russa wanted to get Ryan Franklin ready in the pen. Franklin ran into trouble in the Cardinals' last game, Saturday night in Florida, in a loss. Brandon Phillips 0 for 4. Hitting .333 in his last 10 games, Brandon Phillips. Gomes on the move, but he'll have to come back. Another guy that generally doesn't get out of the lineup, Brandon Phillips, with a day off yesterday after he had found that ball off his shin Saturday. The 36,353 trying to do their part from the stands. 1-1 the count to Phillips. Gomes on the move again. And another foul. Chris Heisey on deck. He had pinch hit in the 8th and stayed in the game to play left field. Kyle McClellan. 1-2 the count with 2 out and 1 on. And that takes care of it as Phillips goes down swinging. And the Cardinals win the series opener 7-3, and a lot of it thanks to a big 7-run 4th inning.
Well, that was all the whole offense the Cardinals had. They only scored in that 1 inning. Unfortunately for the Reds, it was 7 times they were able to touch home plate. Albert Pujols and company, based on the strength of that opposite field grand slam by their second baseman Skip Schumacher. Take the first of 3 here at Great American Ballpark. Big crowd, 36,000 plus on hand. The Cardinals have whittled the lead the Reds have in the National League Central down to 1. But there's 2 more games and a lot of baseball left.
There certainly are. 7-3. Cardinals with a win over the Reds. A preview of Reds Live. Here's Jeff Pecora.
Thank you.